She was rich, pregnant, and alone in the rain, abandoned by the man she loved. A barefoot homeless boy approached her with shaking hands and half a sandwich. What he whispered broke her heart and saved it forever. The wind was merciless that night. Cars rushed past without a second glance, splashing rainwater onto the sidewalk where a woman stood, shivering, crying, and 8 months pregnant. Her hair clung to her cheeks. Her designer coat was soaked. Her phone battery had died an hour ago, and she had no idea where she was. Olivia Grant was supposed to be safe in her penthouse by now, but fate had other plans. The man she trusted, the father of her unborn child, had dropped her off on the highway shoulder after a cruel argument, shouting something about how she ruined everything. And just like that, he sped away, leaving her alone in the freezing dark. She was a millionaire, but in that moment, she felt like nothing. The tears would not stop. Her hands trembled as she sat on the curb. And just when she whispered to herself, "I have no one," a voice replied, "Miss?" It was barely a whisper. She looked up. A boy, maybe 10, maybe younger, stood nearby under a flickering street lamp. His face was dirty, his pants were too short, no socks, torn sneakers. He looked like he had not eaten in days. But in his small hands was half a peanut butter sandwich. He held it out. "You can have this. I saw you crying." She blinked through tears. "You want to give me food?" He nodded. "I had 2. I ate one earlier. This one's clean, I promise." She did not know whether to cry more or laugh, but when she reached for it, her hand shook. The boy noticed. He sat down beside her on the wet curb without saying a word. Just sat, quietly, like she was not broken, like she was not some pitiful sight. No judgment, just silence, shared silence. After a long pause, she asked softly, "Where are your parents?" He shrugged. "Don't got any, just me. I sleep behind the church sometimes, and sometimes the old bus stop." Do you always give your food away?" He smiled for the first time, a smile that did not match the scars on his knuckles or the hole in his shoes. "You looked like you needed it more." Her heart cracked. No one had shown her kindness in weeks. Not her fiancé, not her friends, not her so-called assistants or fake charity board sisters. But this boy, this child, gave without asking anything in return. She asked for his name. He hesitated. Then, barely above a whisper, "People just call me Kid." She wanted to hug him, but she was too cold, too stiff, so instead she whispered, "Thank you, Kid." He stood up suddenly, like he remembered something urgent. "Wait here!" Before she could say anything, he ran into the dark. She panicked. What was he doing? Minutes passed. Then footsteps returned. He held something out to her, a beat-up, broken umbrella. It barely worked, but it covered her just enough. She started sobbing, harder than before. He was just a child, but in one night, he gave her more compassion than anyone in her perfect, polished life ever had. She reached into her coat pocket for her emergency cash, 5 $100 bills. She offered them to him with both hands. "Please, take this." But the boy stepped back. "No, thank you. You needed a friend, not a buyer." And just like that, he walked away, into the storm. She called out after him, but he did not turn back. She never saw him again, but she never forgot. That boy, that moment, that broken umbrella, it stayed with her. It reminded her that kindness still existed, and that not all angels have wings. Some walk barefoot and sleep behind churches. Years later, when the world changed again, she would hear his name, but not as Kid, as someone the whole country had come to know. And this time, she would not let him walk away. Olivia never told anyone about that night. Not her therapist, not her publicist, not even the driver who found her an hour later on the roadside. That boy, Kid, was her secret, a moment no one could manufacture or monetize, something real. She gave birth to her son a few weeks later, alone. The media spun the story like a comeback fairy tale. Pregnant millionaire dumped days before delivery, rises stronger than ever. But they had no idea how close she came to giving up that night, and how a barefoot stranger changed everything. She built her life back in silence. No more luxury launches or staged interviews, no more magazine covers. Instead, Olivia started a new company, one that supported women with nowhere to go. Safe homes, legal help, career training. She called the foundation the Umbrella Project. No one knew why, but every time she walked past the framed, rusted umbrella in her office, she smiled, because she knew. Years passed. Her son, Aaron, grew up strong, curious, and kind. He raised him to notice people. Not money, not titles, not filters, people. One day, when he was 7, they stopped at a red light downtown. A group of kids were handing out flyers. Olivia smiled as one boy passed one through the window. She nearly gasped. The boy was older now, maybe 17, but those eyes were the same steady, quiet eyes that once sat beside her on a cold curb. Could it be? She opened the flyer and read, "Youth Shelter Fundraiser. Join our speaker, Elijah Gray, former homeless child, current high school valedictorian, and founder of KidKind, a nonprofit mentoring system for at-risk youth." Elijah Gray. That was his name. Not Kid. Not anymore. That night, she searched every article she could find. She read about his rough childhood, how he bounced from shelters to streets, how he taught himself to read at 9, how he helped other runaway kids find food and avoid danger, how he never accepted money, but always offered time. The more she read, the harder she cried. This boy had built something beautiful from nothing, the same way she had. She felt something stir in her chest. She wanted to help. No, not help, repay. But she had one rule for herself. He could never know. He didn't do it for fame. He didn't offer that sandwich for reward. He was kind when no one was watching. So if she was going to do this, it had to be the same way. Silently. She began with small donations to KidKind under an alias. She paid for their mobile van program. Then she funded scholarships, sleeping bags, bus passes, food kits, all anonymously. KidKind began growing fast, from a few shelters to a regional network. Elijah now had a board of directors. He was being invited to youth summits, city councils, and interviews. But one day, something strange happened. A letter arrived at Olivia's foundation, addressed simply, "To the woman who named her foundation after an umbrella." Inside was a typed note. "I do not know who you are, but 10 years ago, I met a woman who changed me. She cried in the rain, and I gave her my sandwich. I thought I'd forget her, but she made me believe in goodness again. I kept that memory, just like she kept the umbrella. E.G." Olivia's hands trembled. He remembered. After all those years, he remembered her too. She smiled through her tears, pressed the letter to her chest, and whispered, "I found you too, kid." But she still kept her distance. She watched him grow from the sidelines, not as a millionaire, not as a mother, but as a woman who had been saved by a child no one else saw. Until one day, something happened that changed everything. Aaron, now a teenager, came home holding a flyer. "Mom, you have to see this guy speak. His name is Elijah Gray. He helps kids who don't have parents. And get this, he used to be homeless." She froze. Aaron's eyes lit up. "Can we go see him? Please. He's doing a talk this Saturday downtown." She nodded, but inside, her heart whispered, "Is it time?"
Saturday arrived with soft skies and a cool breeze. Olivia wore a simple blue coat and no makeup. She did not want to be recognized. Not as a millionaire, not as a name in the papers. Just as a woman, a mother. She sat quietly in the back of the community center with her son, Aaron, watching people fill the folding chairs. Dozens of teenagers gathered around the stage. Some wore uniforms, some wore hoodies and hand-me-down shoes, but all of them, every one, was listening. Then he walked out. Elijah, older now, maybe 23, but still lean, still calm. His eyes scanned the crowd, not proud, not dramatic, just present. He stood at the microphone and paused for a moment. Then he said, "When I was 10 years old, I gave away half a sandwich. It was the only food I had that day. But I gave it because someone looked like they needed it more than me. I didn't know her name, I still don't, but I think about her every day." Olivia clutched Aaron's hand. Elijah went on, telling the story of the shelter he built, the nights he slept behind dumpsters, the day he read his first book by flashlight behind a bus stop, the way teachers overlooked him, the way strangers ignored him, the way one moment of kindness, giving something small, opened his heart to something big. "I was invisible once," he said, "but being invisible taught me to see." The room was silent. Some teens wiped tears. Even Aaron sat frozen. Elijah ended his speech with a quote, "The ones who need the most help often give the most hope." Thunderous applause followed. But Olivia sat still. Her heart was racing. She wanted to run to him, to hug him, to tell him that she was that woman, that his gift meant everything, that the umbrella he gave her still hung in her office. But her legs would not move. Because what if it ruined it? What if naming the moment took away its magic? She stayed silent, even when Aaron tried to drag her to the meet and greet line after the event. "He's talking to people, Mom. Let's go." But she shook her head. Not yet. That night, she returned home, staring at that umbrella on the wall like it was alive. Part of her ached to connect. Part of her wanted to leave the past where it belonged. But fate had another idea.
He glanced at the umbrella on the wall, then back at her, and asked quietly, "Do I know you?" She stood, walked slowly to him, and whispered, "You gave me half a sandwich, a broken umbrella, and the will to survive." Elijah blinked. His face slowly changed. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He stepped back, looked again. "You..." She nodded, and finally, after more than a decade, he cried. Elijah stood in the center of Olivia's office, speechless. His eyes flicked between her face and the umbrella on the wall. Its bent handle, faded cloth, and broken ribs still exactly how he remembered it. He had not seen it since the night he handed it to her, shivering, pregnant, and alone on the curb. And now it was framed like treasure. "You kept it," he whispered. "I kept everything," Olivia said gently. "Your kindness, your voice, your smile. That moment changed my life." He tried to smile, but his face trembled too much. I didn't even do much." "You gave everything you had," she said, "and you gave it freely." They sat in silence for a moment, both trying to breathe through the emotion. Then Olivia reached for a folder on her desk. She opened it and slid it toward him. Inside were copies of every donation she had ever made to KidKind, all under an anonymous name. Van programs, rent for shelters, scholarships, legal fees, emergency food banks. Over the past 5 years, she had funded nearly 80% of everything Elijah had built. His hands shook as he flipped page after page. "This was all you?"
"I told you that night," Olivia said softly, "that I had no one. But I lied. I had you. And when you gave me hope, I promised myself I would never let you disappear again." Elijah put his hand over his mouth, his chest rising and falling like waves. I thought I was alone in this." "You were never alone," she said, eyes wet. "Not once." They talked for hours. Olivia told him about her son Aaron, how she raised him to see people with his heart, not his eyes. She told him about her pregnancy, her betrayal, the collapse of her old life, and how his simple gesture pulled her out of despair. Elijah told him about his youth on the streets, how some nights he read menus from closed restaurants just to distract himself from hunger, how he once stole a loaf of bread and returned it in the morning because he could not live with the guilt. And that night with her was the first time he ever felt like he could make a difference. "I was just a kid," he said quietly, "but you made me feel like I mattered." She reached across the table and took his hand. "You always mattered, and now the world knows it too." As the sun dipped below the skyline, Olivia stood beside the framed umbrella. She smiled. "I kept this because it reminded me of the night I stopped feeling sorry for myself and started feeling grateful." Elijah looked up at her. "Grateful?" "Yes," she said. "Grateful that even on the worst night of my life, I met the best soul I had ever known." His eyes filled again. She turned back toward him. "I want to make you an offer, something I never thought I would say." He listened. "I want you to take over the Umbrella Project." His eyes widened. "What?" "I built it, but you inspired it. And if it exists to help people like you once were, then who better to lead it than the person who lived it?" He stood frozen. I don't know what to say." "Say yes." That night, Elijah walked home feeling something he never had before, a full circle kind of peace. Not only had he saved her life once, she had spent years quietly giving it all back to him. He never wanted credit. She never wanted thanks. But somewhere in the quiet space between their pain, they found something unbreakable. Family. 1 year later, the community center was packed. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered, but all eyes were fixed on the stage, where Elijah Gray stood, no longer a homeless boy, but the new executive director of the Umbrella Project. Behind him, a huge screen showed children laughing in shelters across the country, vans with bright blue logos delivering supplies, and hundreds of volunteers guiding teenagers towards safety. But the most powerful image was the last. A photo of a torn, rusted umbrella in a gold frame. Elijah looked toward the front row. Olivia sat there, smiling softly, tears in her eyes. Beside her sat her teenage son, Aaron, holding her hand tightly. Elijah spoke. "I used to think I was forgotten, but then I met a stranger who saw me. She did not see a thief or a burden or a statistic. She saw a boy with something to give. I gave her half a sandwich, and she gave me my future." This project, this mission, is not about saving people. It is about seeing them the way she saw me. The crowd stood to their feet, thunderous applause, tears, even the mayor wept. But Olivia's eyes were only on him. That night, after the ceremony, Olivia and Aaron walked through the halls of the foundation together. They stopped beneath the framed umbrella on the wall. Aaron finally asked, "Mom, why do you keep that old thing up there? I mean, it's bent and torn." She smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "That," she said, "was the first gift I ever received that came with no strings." Aaron looked again. "But why didn't you tell me all this before?" She sighed. "Because some stories need time. Some people Need time. Aaron nodded, but his voice cracked. Is Elijah like your son too? She hesitated, then nodded. In a way, yes. He smiled, but tears welled in his eyes. Then I'm lucky, because I get to share you with someone who deserves you. She pulled him into her arms. You're both my miracles, she whispered. A few weeks later, Elijah visited Olivia's home for dinner. It was quiet, peaceful. The table was set for 3. As they ate, Olivia pulled out something wrapped in cloth. She slid it across the table. Elijah unwrapped it slowly. It was a brand new umbrella, sturdy, bright blue, with the word "Kid Kind" stitched on the edge. She smiled. You gave me yours. I thought it was time I returned the favor. He held it gently and whispered, Thank you, Mom. She froze, then smiled through tears. She had never heard that word from him before, but it filled every crack in her heart. The camera fades to black. A quote appears on screen. Never underestimate the power of one small act, because what you give in a moment might save a life forever. The moral of the story: the smallest acts of kindness often become the greatest turning points in someone's life. When given from the heart without expectation, they echo across time and build bridges no pain can destroy.